I've always been an advocate for the value of labs inside of medicine. Everybody knows that quote that's probably overly quoted. 75% of medical decisions are based on laboratory data. I thought, great. AI uses tons of data. It needs data. That's the gas and the fuel for AI. We produce it as the lab. This is our moment. We get to step into the spotlight here and really see the value we drive, because laboratory currently only uses, I think it's like 2.6% of healthcare spend goes to the lab, and we're producing 75% of the data behind the decisions. I thought this is it. This is AI is going to be the thing that really puts us in the showcase light. More recently, I've started to think that data that we've produced may just get digested, used by others. I don't know. I can't see a clear path to how the laboratory benefits. Maybe the type of data isn't the type that really drives AI. So I'm going to kick it over to Jihoon, because we had a little bit of conversation about this that I thought was enlightening on the difference between maybe structured data and unstructured, and some of the more valuable types of data for AI. How does the lab benefit, or does it, from AI's appetite for data?
Yeah, so as a lot of people know, I think there's tremendous demand for diagnostic data that comes out of the lab. A lot of biopharma companies purchase that. They can't seem to get enough of it. And you have entire companies, for example, Flatiron Health. They have the Onco EMR, and they had a huge data play on the oncology space, and they sold the data to biopharma and whatnot. And so we do know there's a huge demand for that, and that labs are the source of that data, so that theoretically you should be able to get some kind of monetary value from the data itself, as it pertains to AI use cases in AI and whatnot. So far, it hasn't really materialized the way that I think a lot of people expected it to. Even though the lab is the source of the data, and the lab is the one driving so much decisions. By the way, John, I asked my wife about that 75% thing, and she thinks it's more like 90% of decisions.
Wow.
She's a physician, so she's telling me maybe it's more like 90%, because I look at quantitative data all the time. But yeah, so anyways, there's definitely an appetite for it, but so far it hasn't really materialized, because you see a lot of the software, the data resellers and people that aggregate data, they're getting the data from the EMR, the patient chart, which then combines the lab data with all the other encounter data from the physician. And so they're selling all the kind of combined data to the biopharma companies out there that want the data. And so from a kind of the perspective of the lab, it's been a little limited, but I don't think it's necessarily tapped out in terms of opportunity, because the lab has information, diagnostic information, that perhaps the EMRs don't have. Maybe it has, assay related information that matters. Maybe there's QC data that matters. Maybe there's more. Maybe the lab is actually a better aggregator of overall patient data overall, like qualitative and non-qualitative. For example, like as we get into genomic sequencing, right now, like people have talked about, okay, how do we integrate genomics testing into the EMR? Right now, it's really hard to. So maybe there's applications in NGS that pertains to being able to sell. And it's a very sensitive topic, because obviously genetic data is very sensitive, but there could be opportunities there for the lab when they get into more and more esoteric or high complexity testing. But certainly, I think there is still value that we not be seeing right now, to be able to capture value from the data that the labs produce every day.
And I think it was helpful for me when I spoke to you about the fact that, like, a lab value, if that's the data, maybe AI is not really needed in order to run a formula, right? Like, we've been able to do that with spreadsheets or whatever for a very, very long time. And so just having numbers probably isn't the type of data that's really going to be monetized. It needs to be, whether it's imagery or it's non-structured, or it's different types of data being bundled together through the EMR. I think that's where really the value starts to get unlocked, and good for us to think about. I know I talk to lab owners regularly that have a data play where they're going to sell their data, and it normally means I have a bunch of lab values with decimal points, and I'm hoping somebody pays me for those, and I don't know if that paycheck's coming. So starting to think about ways to put your data in a format that's going to be more valuable by pairing it with something else, or maybe it's some of that imagery data for those groups that are doing AP. I think 23andMe was the one that everybody was pointing to as they made this big data play, and it's not playing out real well for them recently, if anybody's been following that in the news.